Welcome to Shelf Help, a channel dedicated to talking to the void about whatever book I happen to be reading. I'm your host, the reader. The following review will contain spoilers. I would just like to start by saying how wonderful it is to read an entire YA series with a female protagonist that involves zero love triangles. Love triangles are such a toxic idea, and they are absolutely pervasive when the protagonist is female. I get it. It's nice to be wanted. But inevitably, it ends up bringing the entire plot to a screeching halt, so we can wonder which of these hot guys she should choose. And about half the time, they're both hot garbage anyway. But here we have a whole trilogy of 600-page books with healthy relationships of all kinds, and none of them derail the plot. Can I get a hallelujah? We have the heteronormative with Veronica and Tristan boldly expressing their feelings. Sev and Cade are feeling their way through the first blush of a same-sex relationship, and a long-standing three-way between Valkyra, her ambition, and her ego. Well, that last one's probably not healthy. This is a story about connections. It is the rich dynamic of family, of the old generation leading and later following the new, of empire and rebellion, of the betrayed, the redeemed, and those not seeking redemption, of the heroes and victims of war. And all of this is tied together in a serious clusterfuck of a mixmaster that is the relationship between Veronica and her sister aunt, Valkyra. The short version is that Valkyra was the crowned princess of a long line of Animagi Phoenix Rider queens. Her younger sister, Fionia, is neither, but she's also the more stable of the two. The Empire chose the non-crazy sister. Unfortunately, Valkyra is also the de facto leader of the Phoenix Rider, and she took her part of the Empire's army and rebelled, kicking off the Blood War. In the last battle, she accidentally shot her very pregnant sister, and they both died in the flames of Valkyra's phoenix. Veronica was saved from her mother's body, and Valkyra was reborn. Both were raised as sisters by Valkyra's former spymaster. But Valkyra isn't, and wasn't, just an Animagi. She's also one of the very rare Shadow Mage. And she used her shadow magic to control her patrol, and used it in her next life to control and manipulate Veronica, and later others as well. But in this life, her shadow magic has eclipsed her animal magic, leaving her completely unable to hatch a phoenix, which, given her history and personality, really doesn't sit well. Now don't get me wrong, despite everything, Valkyra loves Veronica, and she loved Fionia. But like all toxic relationships, it is a love on her terms and her terms only. She can only accept the world where she had absolute control, and her sister, and later her niece, took the submissive role. And yet no one could be her beta, except Fiona or Veronica. Through most of the story, Valkyra has a loyal minion in Sidra. Sidra was one of Valkyra's patrol members before the war, and even then she was controlled by shadow magic. In this new life, when Val finds her, she is again put under control of shadow magic. But I kind of wonder if that was strictly necessary. Sidra is a true believer, very likely a zealot. Unlike Veronica and Dorian, she at no point fights Valkyra's control. For all Val's lauding of her amazing shadow magic, the other person still has to be willing to submit to some extent. When they resist, she must expend more magic and energy to keep control. So in the end, her only ally is the one rider still willing to follow her, and even that rider needs to be put under magical shackles. Because Val can't be comfortable without absolute control. Veronica, by contrast, forms connections readily, and this is because she leads not by force, but by treating others with respect and trust. Even when she pretends to be a boy, she reached out to others with kindness and was willing to help. Yes, everyone was a little upset that she lied about being a boy, but all she lied about was her gender, and only because girls were not allowed. And after her true identity as an Ashfire heir is discovered, she still works with people and does not, at any point, try to seize power like a Valkyra would. As their stand-in grandmother said, both girls are like fire. A Valkyra consumes, Veronica lights the way. This is a story about connections. Sev spent his whole life drifting, doing his best to stay on board, forgettable and not causing waves. After the death of his parents, he never wanted to be hurt like that again. He moves from place to place, keeping people at arm's length, and even hiding his animagi powers. He justifies this by calling himself a coward, unwilling to make sacrifices, and afraid of being made a mage slave. Then he meets Cade, who is everything Sev is not. Cade is a powerful animagi, and unashamed of it. And he is actively fighting the Empire even while enslaved. Cade doesn't like Sev at first, seeing him as a coward. As the story goes on, they get to know each other and work together and save each other. A key moment is when Tristan is captured. Sev sends the injured Cade back with the Phoenix Riders and chooses to stay behind with Tristan as a spy. He also gives instructions that the Phoenix Egg he had been promised would pass to Cade. Despite all the work he does, Sev has trouble seeing himself as anything but the coward he has been his whole life. When he and Cade are reunited, Cade is a fully fledged Phoenix Rider, leaving Sev feeling inadequate and undeserving. This goes back and forth, and if they weren't both so obviously head and heels over each other, it would probably be annoying. But there's no trying to make each other jealous or mad. It's just personal issues. Basic relationship troubles. Sev trying to come to terms with himself and his place in the world, and how he would fit in with a Phoenix Rider who shares a bond with a Phoenix. Cade, for his part, is mad. He loves Sev. He's furious that Sev keeps putting himself down and letting it get in the way of their relationship. He's trying to be patient, but it's hard watching someone you love hurt themselves. And this all culminates in what, for me at least, is the best scene in the book. I love self-sacrifice. Sev has been making slow progress, even if he still thinks his place with Cade is only temporary. During a daring rescue of some Phoenix Riders, they find themselves trapped. The way forward is barred, and the way back is full of Empire soldiers. The only way out is Phoenix fire. Phoenix Riders are fireproof. Sev is the only non-rider. I'm not going to spoil this scene. It is way too good. I had to read it twice, it was so good. This is a story about connections. Inknix is the world's first Phoenix, bound to the first Rider Queen. She has lived for centuries, apex of the flock. Her bondmate is long dead, though the bond lives on in her descendants. Over time she drifted away, slipping out of history and into legend. She has been alone for a long, long time. For a creature meant for magical and social bonds, being alone isn't healthy. By the time a Valkyra finds her, she is a broken shadow of her former self, and vulnerable to a Valkyra's control. Even when she gets free, she has trouble accepting help from others. It takes a little bird to remind her that she does not need to carry her burden alone. Sparrow is one of the first friends Veronica made after relieving Val. Blind, she was dumped in a monastery as a small child by a family that could not afford to care for her. After a few months, at 5 years old, she decided she hated there and walked out. Probably the most powerful animagi in the book, she survived by making friends with animals of all kinds. Despite her lack of human friends prior to coming to live with the riders, she knows how important having friends to share life's burden is. She is the one who both reaches out to Ignix and scolds the ancient phoenix for refusing to ask for help. This is a story about connections, and it's beautiful. So is there anything I didn't like? The Empire. It's supposed to be a secondary threat after Valkyra, but it feels unfinished. So after the war, the Golden Empire outlawed animagi, and anyone found to be an animagi was enslaved. But as said in other reviews, they have no way to enforce this. There are two kinds of magic in this world. Animagi, who can talk to and control animals, and shadow magi, who can do the same but with people. The second is rare and frowned upon well before the Blood War. So how do non-magical soldiers control magical slaves? Outside of special cases, of course. Like the young Phoenix Riders who Valkyra abandoned in the capital at the beginning of the war. The general slaughtered half of them, took their phoenixes hostages, and blackmailed their families. Those I get. But what about people like Cade? He is a powerful animagi. He's got no family to blackmail. Not only is his magic uninhibited, the soldiers actively use mage slaves to care for their animals. They need them to send messenger pigeons. They even use mage slaves to draw animals in for hunting. I see no reason why they wouldn't tell those pigeons to make a pit stop to deliver the message to an ally first. And you want me to draw animals for you to hunt? Enjoy this pack of wolves, 3 bears, and a mountain lion, I called. I told them you were tasty. Oh, and your horse is probably going to throw you in a ravine. And if you keep them in the city, I hope you like rats in your food and cats in heat outside your window 24/7. Not to mention what every bird in the city is going to do to you every time you leave the house. Putting a collar and tags on someone doesn't make them a slave. And the history of slavery is also the history of people escaping slavery. Because slavery sucks. There is no mechanism presented in any of these books that gives the non-magical people a way to control their magical slaves. This is slavery by the honor system. And that's not the only problem. At the climax of this book, the general of the army marches out to meet the Phoenix Rider, and he brings with him catapults and cavalry. I'm going to let you think about that for a minute. Even giving the Empire the benefit of the doubt that they treated all the wood and rope so that it wouldn't burn, catapults are siege engines. They are designed to sling heavy rocks against stationary fortifications. Phoenixes are large, agile, magical, and linked to their human riders. They're going to dodge. I mean, you could use them to throw oversized Manriki chains or use them like medieval net gun, but that's not what's happening here. They're just using them to throw rocks. And the cavalry? I can't even think of a way to justify that. Make no mistake, cavalry can be terrifying. You have, say, a quarter horse that's 1,200 pounds and gallops at 45 miles an hour, or an actual draft horse used in war, which can be a full ton and gallop at 30 miles an hour. Either way, you need to get out of the way or you're going to get your ass run over. Plus there's the guy with the sword. Besides that, horse-mounted units are basically mobile high ground, all of which is completely nullified by pitting them against flying opponents. Honestly, this feels like a case of, well, this is a medieval setting, and so these are the types of units the armies had, so that's what I'm going to use. And I actually see that a lot. Now, that isn't to say that the Emperor has no use for cavalry. There are places beyond the map where they might be useful, especially once they are bereft of Phoenix Riders. But they had no business going up against Phoenix Riders. Military animal units are really, really expensive. training a single dog can be between $20,000 and $40,000, depending on the specialty. Training starts at birth, and they may be 3 to 5 years old before they're ready. By age 10, they're looking to retire. Horses are even more expensive, and they need to be trained to defy their prey instincts and charge towards the scary sounds. In the modern world, the last time we had a large number of horses in the military was World War II. Since then, we've employed machines like tanks and planes. The expense of cavalry now outweighs the benefits. When building an army, be it a fantasy or sci-fi, you have to step back and ask, what units does this country need, and what units do they need in this particular situation? An army moves on its stomach, so they don't want to field units that aren't useful. With all that said, it is fantasy. You're not strictly bound to real weapons, or real military units for that matter. Feel free to modify them or make something up whole cloth. Maybe the catapults can rotate, and instead of rocks they fling water balloons filled with flame-retardant oil that keep the phoenixes from alighting and makes it hard for them to fly. This is an army that spent centuries working with the Phoenix Raiders, and recently fought against them. They should be familiar with the unit's strengths and weaknesses. I'm going to put this series on my top shelf. Empire aside, I find this is going to be a comfort read for me. It is a reminder that family is more than blood, but also that you can't change people. Both Fiona and Veronica reached out to Valkyra again and again, even as they worked against her, but Valkyra can never see herself as anything but right. Even when she lost everything, twice, even after she took everything from first her sister, then her niece, even after she betrayed the Riders, destroyed a centuries-old empire, caused Animagi to be enslaved, phoenixes to be hunted to near extinction, and returned the Strix to the world, she could not see herself as anything but 100% right. It was better to burn it all down than to be wrong. This is a story about connections. Building those that make us strong through trust, love, and community, and learning to let go of those that no longer serve us. Thank you for your time. I know everyone's mileage will vary, so feel free to leave your thoughts.